Hey everybody, welcome to Crazy Tech Lab, and today we are going to be checking out the RTX 3080 Ti and seeing how it stacks up compared to the other Nvidia cards that we'll be checking out today, including the RTX 3080 and the 3090, as well as AMD's RX 6900 XT. So I think it's fair to say though that this card is retailing for $1,199, and that means that we're not looking at an RTX 3080 replacement here, and we're looking for a card that sits much closer to the RTX 3090. So this isn't a card that's going to be particularly affordable, and that's before we even get to the elephant in the room, which of course is the crazy pricing and shocking availability of most graphics cards at the moment. There is a little bit of hope with this graphics card because it does include Nvidia's mining limiter, which means that this card is going to mine Ethereum, which is kind of the most popular cryptocurrency coin at the moment. It's going to mine it at a far lower rate, but for similar power consumption, which means that it is the least power efficient card, hopefully the least attractive card to miners than anything else in the RTX 3000 series. Whether or not that's going to improve things or not in terms of price or availability remains to be seen, because the major issue really that a lot of people don't really want to talk about at the moment, because there isn't anything they can do about it. We all love to hate on the miners, of course, but it is the microchip shortage, and that is affecting pretty much everything as far as consumer electronics goes. So whether mining or making this card less attractive to miners is going to have a significant impact on price and availability remains to be seen. But for now though, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to turn on those notifications when you do, because they will be notifying you when I upload a new video. And I've got so much cool stuff to come in terms of build features and build guides, water cooling, and small form factor stuff as well. So lots and lots for you to be interested in, and lots and lots of reasons for you to subscribe to my channel and also like this video as well. And don't forget to check out my article over on Forbes as well. I've got the full written review with graphs and a whole bunch of analysis over there that you can check out at your leisure. And as I mentioned, there is a link to that in the description below. So in terms of specifications then, what do we have here? So if you're not familiar with the RTX 3080 Ti's specifications, I know a lot of you are. The key differences really are the memory bus, and also the number of CUDA cores, Tensor cores, and RT cores. So starting with the latter, the RTX 3080 is way down the stack in terms of how it compares in terms of CUDA cores, Tensor cores, and RT cores. The CUDA core count has risen from 8,704 with the RTX 3080 to 10,240, so a huge increase there. The Tensor cores up from 272 to 320, also a significant increase, and the RT cores from 68 to 80. So we are looking at a graphics card which is much more in line with the RTX 3090 here than we are with the 3080. And for example, the 10,240 CUDA cores with the 3080 Ti compares to 10,496 with the 3090. The 320 Tensor cores compares to 328 with the 3090 as well. So we're really not looking at too much of a difference here between the RTX 3080 Ti and the 3090. There is also zero difference in the memory bus. This is also a significant difference though over the 3080, which had a memory bus width of 320 bits versus 384 for the RTX 3080, so a significant increase here. And that matches the RTX 3090, 384 bits as well. Now, in terms of the memory, again, a small increase here compared to the RTX 3080. You're looking at 12 gigabytes compared to 10 gigabytes, whereas the RTX 3090 is still the flagship for me, really. I know Nvidia says that this is the new flagship, but really for me, it's still the RTX 3090 if you want the ultimate card, because it has 24 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory versus 12 gigabytes for the RTX 3080 and 10 for the 3080. So again, a small bump compared to the 3080, but a significant drop compared to the 3090. So what we will be doing today then is running through a whole bunch of benchmarks and checking out the card in person in terms of the cooler, and going from there to make some conclusions in terms of the performance and price. And that's pretty much it. So let's crack on with the testing. The RTX 3080 Ti's cooler is exactly the same size and design as the RTX 3080, with the flow-through fan design, and the dimensions are exactly the same size as well. The RTX 3080 Ti Founders Edition's cooler is much smaller than that on the RTX 3090 Founders Edition, so if you're looking for a Founders Edition card, you can cram much more power into a much smaller space with the RTX 3080 Ti compared to the RTX 3090, which simply doesn't fit in a lot of small cases and even some larger cases either. For testing the graphics cards this week, I've used my test bench Wanda, who is sporting an MSI MEG Z590 Ace motherboard with a Core i9 11900K running at stock speed. We've also got 16GB of Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro memory, and the CPU is also water-cooled using a combination of Corsair components and a Barrow CH water-cooled test bench. My test system uses the latest Nvidia and AMD drivers, and also the latest updates for Windows 10 as of the 31st of May. So these updates and these drivers can and do affect performance, so none of my previous results from old reviews are really comparable, and I would also check to see, if you're looking at any other reviews, where they've got their data from and if they have retested in time for this review, because that is really important. I am also enabling a resizable BAR, or Smart Access Memory as AMD calls it, in all of my tests, so it's an equal playing field thanks to the up-to-date hardware that I'm now using in my test system. Watch Dogs Legion is up first and at 1440p with ray tracing turned on but DLSS turned off for now. The RTX 3080 Ti performs pretty much as we'd expect it to, performing very similarly to the RTX 3090, but offering a significant lead over the RTX 3080 and AMD RX 6900 XT. Dialing things up to 4K doesn't really make that much of a difference. The RTX 3080 Ti is still performing very closely to the RTX 3090, while offering a significant lead over the RTX 3080. Adding DLSS into the mix then, and in Watch Dogs, all Nvidia cards really see a significant boost to the frame rates over the RX 6900 XT. Just really not liking ray tracing in this game, and this just compounds the issue with the boost that DLSS has on performance. Again though, the RTX 3080 Ti not really that far behind the RTX 3090 at all, just a couple of frames, but still offers a significant boost over the RTX 3080. Moving on to Dirt 5 now then, and with ray tracing enabled, the RX 6900 XT performs a little better, but the RTX 3080 Ti still outperforms it by significant margins and is again not that far from the RTX 3090, but a slightly larger gap than we've seen before. At 4K, the gap between the RTX 3080 Ti and RTX 3090 was much more significant here, approaching 10% on the minimum 99th percentile, while it offers a significant gain over the RTX 3080. However, the AMD RX 6900 XT wasn't too far behind, with a minimum 99th percentile of 64 frames per second. I'm really pleased to be able to reintroduce Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 into my testing, and here is just a low-level flight taking off from a local London airport to me. And at 1440p then, the AMD RX 6900 XT finally chops the graph with a 99th percentile of 38 frames per second, compared to 37 frames per second for both the Nvidia RTX 3080 Ti and RTX 3090. And once again, the RTX 3080 languishing in a distant fourth place. So obviously the RTX 3080 Ti offering a sizable benefit here. They are very low frame rates, but in terms of percentages, they are much more significant. Switching up to 4K in Flight Simulator then, obviously very, very demanding, and weirdly here it's kind of a flip for the RTX 3090 and RX 6900 XT, the latter now sitting at the bottom of the graph, with the RTX 3090 making the most of its huge amount of memory to offer by far and away the highest frame rate here, and the RTX 3080 Ti kind of falling away, but does still offer a significantly higher average 99th percentile than the RTX 3080. But again here it just shows that the RTX 3090 is still king in some games. Next up is Wolfenstein Youngblood, and at 1440p with no DLSS or ray tracing enabled, the RTX 3090 comes out on top again, but I think there's a little bit of CPU bottlenecking going on here, because if you look at the next graph with 4K, there is more of a difference between the RTX 3080 Ti and 3090. Even so, the RTX 3080 Ti still managed to outdo the RTX 3080 by a significant margin here, so it's again performing much closer to the RTX 3090, which is roughly what we would expect. Moving up to 4K then, again with DLSS and ray tracing disabled, and the Nvidia RTX 3080 Ti offers a significant lead over the Nvidia RTX 3080 and AMD RX 6900 XT, but again though it does fall quite a way short of matching the Nvidia RTX 3090. In this test, we've got ray tracing and DLSS enabled. So obviously with ray tracing enabled in Wolfenstein, you cannot use an AMD card because it doesn't support ray tracing in this game. So that's had to drop off the graph for the time being. However, the RTX 3080 Ti again offers a significant advantage over the RTX 3080, while not quite matching the prowess of the RTX 3090. Another game making a return to my benchmarking is Metro Exodus, courtesy of the new Enhanced Edition, and at 1440p with ultra settings with ray tracing enabled and DLSS also enabled, we've got a performance for the RTX 3080 Ti which is very similar but noticeably behind the RTX 3090, whereas again it's offering a more significant lead over the RTX 3080, and it's no surprise to see the RX 6900 XT languishing well down in last place, but that's only because we've got DLSS enabled. At 4K in Metro Exodus then, the RTX 3080 Ti managed to match the minimum 99th percentile of the RTX 3090, but it was a little bit slower on the average frame rate. However, the RTX 3080 was again a significant amount slower, while the AMD RX 6900 XT, which is obviously lacking AMD's DLSS equivalent here, was around half as fast. Now switching DLSS off so things are a little bit more equal, and the RTX 3080 managed to beat the RX 6900 XT here, so it's fairly clear that this just isn't one of AMD's games that it's focused on optimizing. The Nvidia RTX 3080 Ti though still offering a significant lead over the RTX 3080 and coming within spitting distance of matching the Nvidia RTX 3090 too. Finally then we get to power consumption, and here the winner obviously is the AMD RX 6900 XT. The RDNA 2 architecture is so power efficient, it's by far and away the most power efficient card here, drawing less than any other RTX 3000 series card that I've got in the graphs. The RTX 3080 though does draw a noticeable amount less than the RTX 3080 Ti, which stood at 534 watts for the system as a whole versus 489, so that's around 40 or so watts more, and all that heat is going to be dumped into the cooler, and the cooler being essentially identical to that on the RTX 3080 means that it will, to match the same temperature as the 3080, will have to spin up on more regularly basically. So I didn't notice that too much in my testing, but obviously it would I'm using an open test bench, but obviously in a stuffy PC case it may end up proving to be a slightly noisier card as well as a faster one. The RTX 3090 though, still by far and away the most power hungry card out there, is drawing another 50 watts on top of the RTX 3080 Ti. In terms of the temperatures though, we've got a 77 degrees C core temperature, which is only a degree warmer than I saw with the RTX 3080, while the memory temperature of 98 degrees C was also similar, hitting that pretty high temperature after 5 minutes in Metro Exodus benchmark. Okay, so what do we make of the RTX 3080 Ti then? Well, I think this card pretty much fits where we expected it to fit, given the price that was announced yesterday at $1,200 versus $1,500 for the RTX 3090. We are looking at a graphics card that, in performance terms at least, performs very, very close to the RTX 3090. However, I wouldn't go as far as saying as this is what we've seen from Nvidia in the past in terms of, you know, having that flagship Halo product and then pulling the rug from anybody that has spent over the odds to buy it, coming out with something that's nearly as fast for a whole lot less cash. That's not what's going to happen here. I mean, I can't speak for prices, like retail prices, what you'll actually be able to buy this card for, because I'm doing this review, you know, way before the NDA, so I can't really comment on prices at Newegg and Amazon and all the various e-tailers. However, in terms of the MSRP, what we're looking at is a card that costs, what, $300 yet? $300 less? That's not a significant amount, really. If you're already spending $1,200 on a graphics card, if you know, you probably want the best of the best, and that will mean probably stumping up another $300 for the RTX 3090. I'd imagine that's, you know, if you're spending that much already, you know, why not spend another $300, right? And in a lot of tests, the RTX 3090 is a lot faster as well. Not in all. In most tests, this card is very, very close to it, but in some tests, the RTX 3090 does still have an advantage. So compared to the RTX 3080, though, there kind of isn't really a comparison. This card costs nearly twice as much. It's not twice as fast, but doing the, you know, cost twice as much for, you know, not twice as fast in games argument, I don't really buy into that, because that doesn't hold true pretty much anywhere, both in terms of processors and graphics cards and everything, really. So that's a silly argument. As you ramp up the price, you generally get diminishing returns. That's just the way that these things go. So in terms of everything else, though, what we're looking at here is something that, as I've mentioned before, is very, very similar to the RTX 3090 in terms of price and performance. There is one significant advantage to this card, though, which is that it is offering RTX 3090 like performance, but in a much, much smaller package. So we're dealing with a cooler that is the same size as the RTX 3080, except you're getting a whole bunch more performance in a lot of games. And that will be something that might appeal to people that have looked at the RTX 3090 Founders Edition cooler, that massive cooler, but couldn't fit it in their case. So small form factor fans, if you're looking for something that's reasonably small to cool, air cooling of course, this card is probably for you, because it's offering a much, much smaller package in terms of that performance compared to the RTX 3090. And I know that a lot of people have struggled to fit the RTX 3090 in their ATX cases as well. So that is one advantage that I feel this card offers over the RTX 3090 that is fairly significant. So again, getting back to the elephant in the room, a lot is going to rely on the pricing and availability of this card, and not all of that is down to mining. So yes, this is a far less attractive card to miners than the RTX 3080. In fact, I'll go as far as saying that this is the least attractive card, certainly in terms of power consumption, of the entire RTX 30 series by a long way. Is that going to stop people buying it? Who knows? You know, supplies are still very, very low out there, so anybody that's dead set on buying it for mining is probably still going to be pushing those prices up. However, the microchip shortage is potentially an even bigger factor here in terms of affecting price and availabilities, and there is nothing that this card is going to do to solve that compared to anything else. So that's still a problem, and a lot of experts are saying that that is going to continue for the rest of 2021. Pricing should, if that starts to improve, come down as more cards are available. But it's just we're just going to have to wait and watch this space. I've come here today with not really wanting to focus on that too much, because I'm here at the end of the day to review a graphics card. But I can appreciate that if you can't buy that graphics card, or at least you can't buy it for a reasonable amount of money, and buying it is probably going to be even more of an issue with the Founders Edition card that I've got here than with other stuff, that's always going to be a problem. So I can only draw too many conclusions from what I've found here today, and that is that this card sits pretty much where we expected it to sit, which is close to the RTX 3090. So that's, as I mentioned, pretty much the only conclusion I can draw here without trying to promote or make a card look good in a certain light when you can't buy it for anywhere near the MSRP, and that is continuing to be an issue and is looking like it will continue to be an issue for the rest of the year. So that's it from me today. I'm not drawing any more conclusions than that because I think it would be unfair to you guys, but obviously a monstrously powerful graphics card that's even more monstrously powerful once you dial up DLSS and ray tracing, and that obviously is one of Nvidia's trump cards for the time being. And also with this card, perhaps something that not many other people will be interested in is its appeal to the small form factor community out there. If you can deal with the flow-through fan, which has obviously been an issue in a lot of instances with small form factor cases, this card basically offers RTX 3090 performance, but in a much, much smaller package. So as long as you can deal with that heat, if the RTX 3090 Founders Edition card or any of the huge third-party coolers out there just don't fit in your case, the Founders Edition here is potentially a lot easier to deal with. So that's it from me. Don't forget to check out my review over on Forbes, and you can check me out on Instagram and loads of other social media outlets as well. So thanks for tuning in today. As always, let me know what you think in the comments as well. Always interested to hear your thoughts on the hardware that I'm actually reviewing. Is the RTX 3080 Ti going to be something that you're going to want to look at buying at some point? Would you buy it over the 3090, for example, if prices were where they should be? I'd be super interested to hear what you think about that. And that's pretty much it from me. So thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you soon.